Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Ruth Carter, the Liberty Coach, and I'm here today with another Parenting Live. We're going to be still going over the rites of passage, and today we are looking at emotional rites of passage. So I do hope and trust that you've had a wonderful week, a really good day. If you're here in the UK, we have had an extremely lovely hot day and a little bit of a muggy evening. That's me with the weather report. But I do hope whatever your day has been, that it has been a good one for you. So, welcome to Parenting Live. And if you're coming and you've been visiting my page and you're on my page and you've been coming here, thank you and welcome again. If you're new, welcome again. I'm Ruth, as I said, and there are lots and lots of resources here in terms of parenting with other previous videos. So, as with all parenting programs, the practitioners read from the Strengthening Families, Strengthening Communities Parenting Manual so that you get an essence of what we're talking about, so that you can hear the information. On the blog that I posted today, I did put some exercises there. One, the activities, and I've also put a list of emotions. Then at least you've got a starting block to have and engage that conversation regards to emotional rights with your children. So I will make a start. Emotional rite of passage. We need to help our children learn to identify, label, and express a wide range of emotions. We need to reach and teach our children it is not important which emotion they express, that it is important, but rather how it is expressed. It is one thing to tell someone you are angry or upset, and another thing to shout and slam doors. Our children need to learn ways of managing anger so they can channel their emotions in a way that is acceptable to the family and community, and that will not contribute to the potential of explosive situations. Now, I know the parents that listen have children from very different ages, and I'm also aware that some of the children have learning needs and medical needs as well. So, with the information that I'm sharing, you know your children best. And these are just suggestions that you can use with your children. So, pick the ones that work best for you and the ones that you feel that your children will navigate easily with. So, I know that with dealing with children with especially challenging behaviours, it comes with a hurl of abuse, emotional words, things that are going to set people off and make them angry. So, language is really key when we're covering this, and especially exploring the different types of behaviours. What you want to be seen is more good, productive, resourceful behaviours rather than some of the negative ones, which do come with consequences but also can escalate, like it said, to explosive situations. So what I'll do now is run through some of the steps that are offered by the parenting program. This week, there's 6. So we'll go through the 6, and then afterwards, we'll go through some of the activities that you could choose. And while you're in your summer holiday break, you have got ample time to pick one of them, especially as some parents have said their children are saying they're bored. This could be an activity to engage them in thinking about their lives, how they are, and seeing how they can address any behaviour that is very unresourceful, so they can become more productive in the family home with much better behaviour. So step 1, let's have a look at what it says. Step 1, help your child understand the value of empathy and develop this ability. Now, depending on the age of your children, you know, if we go really young in age, sometimes we get to those ones, not ones, maybe twos and threes, where they have this identity where they don't want to share. Everything is mine, 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 mine. Now, they may be a bit too young, but what as parents we do, we encourage the children at those young ages to share. They may cry, but we soothe them. And so that they can, you know, look at the reciprocal of giving and taking with toys. Now, that is the start of developing this particular trait of empathy, because they get to see that it is a part of sharing, giving something away. But with empathy, we're looking at things from another perspective, from somebody else's point of view, and thinking and taking a moment. We can help our children to deal with that. I've worked with children, especially around lunchtimes, situations happen in school. And when I used to do an NLP drop in at lunchtimes, I would just be in a room eating my lunch with my colleague, and children would come in. Some of them would eat, some of them just wanted to chat and catch up. But that was an opportunity that we could really understand what's happening in schools. Now, sometimes on some occasions, children would come in crying. What's wrong? Someone's bullying them. I say, go get the bully, bring them in here. And you know what sometimes children can be like, especially in secondary school, quite rowdy. Oh, didn't want to see the bully. But that was not my approach at all, because I kind of come with the understanding that children are not their behaviours, they're their environment. And so the question that I had pondering is, what is going on for this young person? Why they are treating another one so badly? Now, if empathy is to come in, what I had to do is tell the child that was being bullied just to hold back and let me deal with the situation, in terms of I was letting the young person know that that other person that's bullying them has got more issues going on than they care to realise. That could be why they are targeting them. Anyway, we had this kind of little chat, and just really just to explore through asking questions what the situation was with between the two. Sometimes some people do not have rapport with one another, and that is absolutely okay. You get to pick your friendship groups. But to go and attack another person with verbal abuse and being horrible and mean, that's just not cool. And that is something that we as parents have to deal with sometimes, whether it's our child that's doing the bullying or whether it's our child that's being bullied. Now, what I was able to do in that situation was basically talk to the bully, ask them a few questions, what was going on, and before long, they were crying. Why? Because they were experiencing the same thing. But when I was getting her to think of it from the person that was being bullied's perspective, that's when it was revealed about the situation that was happening for her at that time. So at least for both parties there at that moment could see from each other's point of view. It wasn't about them making friends, it was about them being aware of their behaviour and learning a new skill to look from another perspective, which empathy allows us to do. Look from another person's perspective just to see what they possibly be going through, how they possibly could feel, why they responded in certain ways. So that's step number one. Number two, help your child understand the value of managing anger and developing this ability. Now, depending on the age of your children, again, now we've got temper tantrums in the early years, but sometimes I've seen adults have temper tantrums. But this is another behaviour. It's about managing behavior. It's kind of like the spring effect, which the program talks about, you know, compressing all your emotions and then one day, you just let off. Now, when you come into children, they are growing up, they're developing, and they can learn to manage their anger. Now, I was saying in the blog, use your words. This is something I say very often to young people. Use your words. How are you feeling? Put a label to it if you can. And sometimes, like, I don't know. But you can see from the body language that they are either frowning, sulking, have a smile, look very sad, upset, or even welling up with tears in their eyes. The body language will allow us to answer some of those questions, but I think it's very, very good for young people, children, to learn their words and put a label in it. And that is what those lists of emotions are there to help you this week. Put labels on the emotions so that instead of us seeing this erratic and chaotic behavior, they can express it also through words and hopefully minimize the outburst of the behavior. So we're moving on nice and swiftly to step number 3. Help your child understand the value of solving problems and develop this ability. What problems are your children facing right now? Now, depending on their age range, they'll be facing a different type of problem. Is it a problem that you can't tie your shoelace and you're 5? It may seem that way, but with practice and practice and practice, they will get it. I say to the children, I ask them about the ages of when they learned to tie their shoelaces, for example. And I remember being in a Bedford school, and I think there were a year 7, I believe, and even there at the age of 11, 12, some couldn't tie their shoelaces. Now, I was saying to that group, you've been robbed by Velcro. And they were like, what? I said, you've been robbed by Velcro because you've had just only the ability just to put it over. You never adapted or learnt the skills of actually looping, tying, and getting it tighter and tighter. Because every child I've asked, when they first put their laces on, it's never right. It doesn't look quite right. It may not feel right. It might be too tight. It could be really loose. But whatever it is, when you keep practicing, practicing, and practicing, you develop the skill. In NLP, that's all they say to us: practice, practice, practice. And that is what we do as practitioners. We go out and practice the craft, the techniques, so that we can develop the skills when we are either delivering, doing workshops, or whatever it is that we're doing. And so then I was able to highlight that it is a skill of solving problems. Now, parents, are we robbing our children of actually solving problems, like small tasks for themselves? I can say, like, when my son was young, I was a little bit guilty of that. And I say this why. In the tips of his finger, his pencil grips were always weak from he was young. So you know when you have your baby and they do little checks and they get the children to pick up little items and stuff like that. Well, he always used to struggle with it. And it was identified quite early on in his age, but it was about using it, getting him to use it more. Now, as he grew up and say he was about the age of 5 and 6, he struggled with opening up like packets of crisps and things for quite a while. But I used to open it for him. That was me solving the problem. And then as he got like to like 7, I was like, no, you need to learn to do it yourself. And he would struggle and struggle. But the more he kept trying, the more attempts he kept making, is how he improved and got much better and better at the skill, solving his problem of open up a packet of crisps. The same with the can. He still had that pincer, still had that struggle on opening things. And it also affected his writing for many years through his school life, especially in the early years when you want to get your pen license. I noticed that the writing needed much improvement. So it was about getting notepads and getting him to practice and practice and practice. He's now year 11. He's finishing, or he's finished and getting his grades soon. And, you know, over the years, it has improved, but it has been with practice. Do we need to practice on how to solve our problems? Yes, because each problem is different. So we may need to take a different step on how we approach it. We need to look at it, analyze it, and come up with a resolution. And making different attempts is not a bad thing. At least we will know what works from what doesn't work. and then problem solved. Moving forward, it is very, very hot tonight. Very, very hot. So, number 4, help your child learn to initiate, develop, and sustain relationships with various people in the community. The suggestions are elders, adults, younger children, and peers. Do your children get the opportunity to meet with other children younger than them? My son, he went to childminder, so during those times he was able to be around younger children, and he done really well. He was very caring and very supportive because he was one of the older children. I'm saying this was like before the age, around the ages of 9 and 10, and just how they interact with older people or the elders in the community. This could be grandparents or any older person that you deem as safe and reliable to be around your children. I've always enjoyed the conversations with the elders because they were from a different time, and the things that they experience, I have no idea what they are, but learning about it is an opportunity, as well as looking after the younger people in our community and making sure that they're all right. And if they fall, we help them to get up. But children are very resilient and they bounce back and get up quicker before you can even reach them sometimes. So, number 5, help your child develop and manage romantic relationships. So, as with this one, clearly we are looking at older children, teenagers, because they do enter into relationships. You know, I work in schools and you see some children walking arm in arm down the corridor, and I just look at them and I'm like, but I don't know what their parents are saying to them. But when I get the opportunity to deliver healthy relationships, this is where we can go deeper. Now, the parenting is one thing, the other programs I do is a completely different thing, but it brings up what children have witnessed and what they're willing to accept in their relationships. Now, if you've ever heard of the Freedom Program, that is a program that was designed to address domestic violence or abusive relationships. Now, some of those themes are really, really important because of the behaviour that is seen. Unfortunately, young girls now add to the total of women who have suffered abuse. We need to have a chat with our children when it's age appropriate. I'm not talking about your 5-year-old or your 6-year-old. I'm talking about when they get to that stage when we're dealing with hormones and feelings and the body is changing and how we respond. Because unfortunately, because of the lack of the conversation, we are seeing things like child exploitation happening amongst peers. I have heard professional people say from the other side, because of their children have done something wrong, and vice versa, their children have been victims. We need to have the conversation. Just because we may have bumbled along our way, we know better, so we should do better. And I do believe we need to have the conversation about risky behaviours, about the different types of relationships, and creating the type of relationship you want. Because I have heard from boys and girls who have extreme emotional abusive behavior from both parties. There are some really mean girls out there and there's some really mean boys out there, and they could be our child. So as parents, I do feel we need to help them by doing something better and giving them the tools. Let's have a talk about the conversations, relationships. We ourselves may have had good and not so good relationships. When it is age appropriate, share, because it's part of learning, it's a part of being aware, and it's a part of seeking something much better. And the last one, but not least, help your child develop into a whole being. spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental. So when we are looking at our children, we are creating, or we've already created, the next being on this planet. Who are they? When I ask children in schools if they have a purpose, they all tell me yes. That's not a conscious question. That's a question deep in the unconsciousness of them. They seem to be aware of a purpose, because when I ask them in the style that I ask them in, they respond yes. And with the nod, I know that I'm getting that straight from their unconscious mind. So that's the steps for the emotional rites of passage. Now, as I say, you probably have done this and have been doing this already. If this is something new to you, I invite you to try it out and have a look to see what it may bring for you. So, what I'm going to do now quickly is look at the activities for this week. Now, like I said, the list of emotions are there. So I will go through that one first. So there are 9 this week. Now I must say that there is an updated parenting manual, which Misha always reminds me. I know she has the updated version. And sometimes when I'm copying these off, she'll be like, is that the updated one? I don't know. But what I do know that this one has 9. And if you happen to have one that has more, feel free to use those ones as well. I'm only going to pick a few just to give you an idea of how you can set up your activities. So, number 1 says conduct a family activity in which each person picks a different emotion to act out, and the other family members try to guess the emotion. So, for that activity, that's what the list of emotions would be really, really good for you to use. Now, you can print them off, you can cut them up and kind of put them in a bowl and pick them out. It's quite fun. When I do this with Michelle, with the parents, it's really funny because sometimes we're like, what is that emotion? But then sometimes we get it every single time. We burst out laughing because we're having a time of reflection and awareness, and we're all on the same conscious level, recognizing where we are, what we've experienced, and how we would like the futures of our children to be, especially in regards to their emotions. Um, Here's one: plan and carry out a family exercise activity that can be used to reduce stress. So, you know your family best. You know the things that have brought you joy, peace, happiness. Those are activities that you could tap into. For example, I enjoy gardening. I never used to. I'm currently doing the opposite of everything I used to do prior. I feel that's what I've taken away from the pandemic. So I love being out in the garden, doing the flowers, the vegetables are growing. I've got sweet potato growing, and this is an activity. Then I say to my son, come and do the garden with me. He's not interested in it at all. But because I have an interest, and I'm like, look at green tomatoes, look at this flowering. He's like, oh wow, you're doing really, really well. So it's an opportunity just so that you can kind of spend time together is one thing. And I will go through one more. Here it says, discuss with your child 3 different ways he or she could make a new friend. Now, some people, especially young people, struggle to make friends, and some struggle to make appropriate friends. Sorry, just dropped something. Some struggle to make appropriate friends. Now, when we're looking at characteristics and qualities, those are kind of some of the things that you can have a discussion about, naming 3 different things. So, that has been our life today. I do hope and trust that you have enjoyed this series. We are coming down to the ends of the rites of passage. There is 3 more to share, which I'm really looking forward to. So what I do hope is that you will have the opportunity to read the blog. Please share, and if you have any questions, you can contact me on my Instagram page, on my Twitter, on Facebook, and you can leave comments in YouTube. And if you're accessing this direct from the website, you can either sign up to the newsletter and you have got my email address right there. So, if there are no comments right now at this time, I am going to wish you a wonderful weekend. You are probably out there enjoying the hot, lovely sun, and I hope you are. Take care and have yourself an amazing weekend. God bless you.